So I think Valve is finally getting caught up on their shipments of the Steam Deck. I pre-ordered mine on July 17th of last year, and on July 26th of this year, mine showed up in the mail. So this is just going to be my regular Joe overview of the Steam Deck, what it looks like, what it runs right, what I like about it, and if you've got one pre-ordered, what you have to look forward to. Now, the reason I think that they're getting caught up on the pre-orders is because I actually pre-ordered 3 of these. I pre-ordered one for myself, which is this one, and I also pre-ordered one for each of my kids on their Steam accounts. But they didn't open Steam for a little while, and we missed the deadline to pay theirs off, so they ended up not getting theirs. But we all got ours within like a week or two of one another. And if you look here, even though I had to wait a year for mine, if you go to the Steam Deck page on Steam, you can see expected order availability Q4 of 2022 for all 3 models. So, you know, that's October to December. So even if you reserve one right now, you're looking at like max 3-4 months before you get it, where I had to wait a year. So they must be catching up with their pre-order and their manufacturing capacity, and they're finally getting Steam Decks out to people who have ordered them. So I've got a couple of little clips that I took of like the moment that I unboxed it, but I wasn't really happy with those clips, so I decided not to make a dedicated unboxing video, especially since it's been a week since I recorded those. I figured I would just go ahead and show everything to you guys now. So for those who don't know, the Steam Deck is a handheld gaming PC. It's just a computer. It comes with a regular Arch Linux based PC operating system that Valve has customized into what they're calling Steam OS. It sort of has like their custom Steam overlay sort of built into it, but it is just a computer. You could install Windows on it, you could install your own operating system. They actually have a lot of support articles on their page for how to repair it, and they're selling replacement parts and things. So they're doing really good things as far as making this just a computer. It's not a proprietary game console. The same games that I play on the desktop PC, I'm playing here without having to buy them a second time all over again. So it came in this box with a little slip around it that says your games are going places, and in the box was the following items. You've got the Steam Deck, which came in this case. It came with a charger. The charger is not branded in any way. It doesn't say Valve or Steam Deck on it. It's just a sort of generic Chicone charger that I guess meets their spec. It's USB-C. And there's several different voltages here, like 5, 9, 15 volts, all at 3 amps, and then it can also output 20 volts at 2 1/4 amps. And so if you lose this, you're going to want to make sure that whatever charger you replace it with is at least as good as this one, because this charger is not branded. So I'm actually going to take a label maker and put a little label on it just so I don't forget. This little pouch was actually tucked under this elastic band on the underside of the carrying case, and what I've been doing is taking my charger and a pair of earbuds and sort of folding them up and putting them in here, and then slide them in here so that when I carry it around, I've got my charger and my earbuds in here, and I've got the Steam Deck itself in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up. When you first open it, it's got a microfiber cloth in here. We'll lay that off to the side. It's got a little strap that lays underneath the Steam Deck while it's in the case that you can use to pull it up, because it is a little bit larger than a Nintendo Switch, and there's not really any sharp edges kind of sticking up here raised for you to grab a hold of, and you don't want to grab it by the joystick, so they put a little strap in here just to help you kind of get it out of its case. The case itself is form-fitted. It's got little indentations for the grips. It even has little cutouts or indentations for the joystick, so that there's nothing going to be like pressing against those joysticks while it's inside the case. They'll sort of be protected. I don't know if this is the same case that you will get with your Steam Deck, because this is the 512 gig model of the Steam Deck, and if you look at the Steam Deck page here, you can see carrying case, and then on this model it says exclusive carrying case. So I don't know if maybe my carrying case is going to be different than these, if those other ones are going to have these same cutouts, or if all they did to mine was put a little logo on it. I'm not sure. But my carrying case may differ from yours if you didn't get the 512 gigabyte model. Okay, so now that they're both up, I would like to take a few moments to sort of compare the ergonomics and the outward appearance and function of the Steam Deck and the Nintendo Switch, because they are sort of serving the same market. Gamers who want a decent amount of horsepower and some good quality AAA games that they can take on the road with them. So, I guess let's start with the button layout. As you can see on the Steam Deck, it's not quite a PlayStation, but not quite an Xbox layout, because you can see the joysticks and the face button and D-pad, they're all like beside each other here. But this, in my opinion, is a lot more comfortable than the layout that the Nintendo Switch is using, where they're vertical over top of each other. Now, it may be because I'm 36 years old and maybe I'm getting a little bit of arthritis in this thumb from years of working, but for me, when I'm playing in handheld mode, it's really uncomfortable on the Nintendo Switch to go from here to this joystick. So if I'm playing Fortnite or something and I need to look, I've got to remove my thumb from the face buttons and come down here to hit this, and this bend is just really uncomfortable for me after a little while. Whereas on the Steam Deck, I don't have to do any bending. I can just swing it from left to right and stay right there. Another thing about the Nintendo Switch that makes it uncomfortable is the lack of much of any contours on the back of the thing. You can see you've got a little bit of a divot here for the ZL and ZR triggers, but that's about it. It's basically flat because these are designed to be removed and sort of used as like player 2 controllers, which is a good thing, except for the 90% of the time that most of us are just playing it like this. You have no support for your fingers back here, and to me, it's really uncomfortable. The Steam Deck, on the other hand, has some pretty decent contours on the back of it. Like, my hand fits it pretty comfortably. My fingers rest naturally on these additional paddle buttons that they've put on the back of it. You've got your L1 and R1 shoulder buttons, and you've got your L2 and R2 triggers here, and it just feels a lot more comfortable in the hand. Now, in addition to these buttons and the paddles that are extra, the Steam Deck also has 2 touchpad mouse inputs. Now, these don't click themselves, that I can tell. Maybe a little bit. But most of the feedback that you're going to get from these is actually haptic feedback, like little vibration motors, and it's a little bit weird. It's a little different at first, because it's a little different than like your normal like trackpad on your laptop, or at least the one on mine. But what these are useful for is like mouse navigation and things of that nature. Now, like the Nintendo Switch, the screen is a touch screen on the Steam Deck, so if you're playing something like Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, where it's going to have like a launcher where you select options and change settings and stuff, where you can just hit play, and that comes up before the game does, you can use the touchscreen to interact with that and then launch the game, and then just come back to this mode and play the game. So you've got, in addition to the normal face buttons, you've got your select and start, you've got your paddle buttons on the back, you've got your mouse trackpads here, 2 of them. You also have a Steam button, which brings up the Steam overlay, where you can get to your library, the store, friends in chat, screenshots, downloads, settings, power it off. And you've also got this quick access button, and what this does is especially useful in game, but this is where you can get to things like your notifications, look at your friends, change some settings like screen brightness, microphone and speaker volume, turn on airplane mode, turn your Wi-Fi on and off. You can go down to battery, and you can actually turn on like on-screen overlays for your frame rate counter and things of that nature. It's got a built-in frame limiter so that you can cap the frame rate at either 15, 30, 60, or no cap frames per second. What this would be useful for is, let's say you want to conserve battery life and you're playing something that 60 frames per second isn't really necessary. You could turn the frame limit down to 30 frames per second, and it would cap the game at that frame rate, and so make the system work a little easier and therefore extend the battery life a little bit. You've got options for half rate shading, scaling filters, GPU clock control, TDP limits, things of that nature, and then your general help menu. If you want to take a screenshot with the Steam Deck while you're gaming, there is no dedicated screenshot button, but what you do is you press and hold Steam and press the R1 button, and it'll capture a screenshot for you. So the important thing, how does it game? Personally, I think it does really, really good as a gaming machine. The games that I play and that I have tested on it all run great. I have played Metal Gear Solid 5, I have played Fallout 4, I've played Spyro the Reignited Trilogy, I'm currently working on Wolfenstein The Old Blood, I played some Apex Legends, Stardew Valley, and all of those games have run amazingly well. Fallout 4 60 FPS. I think it defaults to like low or medium settings with Fallout 4, but honestly it looks great on this size screen. The screen is a lot crisper than I thought it would be for 1280 by 800. Like, you can see individual pixels if you really want to. Like if you turn off anti-aliasing in Spyro and you stare at the edges of a model, you can kind of make out individual pixels, but it's not that easy, at least for me. Metal Gear Solid 5, flawlessly, 60 frames per second, medium to high settings. Everything that I have tried looks and runs great. Now, I did some comparison the other day with Spyro the Reignited Trilogy, because when I started Spyro the Reignited Trilogy on the Steam Deck, I was kind of surprised at just how clear and how good it looked on this screen, because I had been playing it on the Nintendo Switch, and it looks, even on this smaller 720p screen, it just looked blurry and fuzzy on the Nintendo Switch. So I don't know for a fact. Somebody like Digital Foundry would be the ones to look for. They've probably got a video where they've benchmarked this. But my theory is that Spyro the Reignited Trilogy on the Nintendo Switch is actually not even running at 720p. It's probably running at like 540p or something, and they're just anti-aliasing the crap out of it to get rid of the jagged edges, because at 1280 by 800 on a bigger screen on the Steam Deck, it just looks so much crisper. And you could also tell draw distances were extended. Like, I turned out every setting to max and had no hit on the frame rate, and it was running at 60 frames per second locked, whereas the Nintendo Switch, even on a smaller screen, is both blurrier and capped at 30 frames per second. Now, 30 frames per second is fine for an adventure game like Spyro, but when you're comparing the two systems side by side, the Steam Deck obviously runs the game much better. I'm not trying to trash on the Nintendo Switch. It's 5 years older. It has some great Nintendo games on it. Metroid Dread. I would argue that the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, the Nintendo Switch version, is one of the better versions, because it uses the HD Rumble as part of the lock-picking mechanism in the game, and I think it looks and runs pretty good for a handheld console. This is 5 years newer, running the x86 architecture with a little bit bigger of a power budget, so obviously games are going to look and run better. But the reason I'm bringing up the performance comparison is that if you're thinking of picking up a Steam Deck, you need to know how it's going to compare to something like the Nintendo Switch that's going to have a lot of the same games. Now, as you can see, I've got a lot of not PC games on here. I'm going to not show you how I set them up, because Linus Tech Tips already has a video talking about a lot of that. But suffice it to say, like I said, it's a PC. It's running a PC operating system that just has Valve's interface on top of it. And so there are applications that you can use to put these shortcuts for your emulator games in the Steam interface so that you can just launch them directly from here. So the Steam Deck has a thing that's called desktop mode. All you do is from here you press and hold the power button, and you get a little menu here. You scroll down and hit switch to desktop. Now mine's going to ask for a pin, and it's going to switch to the desktop mode. Let's put the little Nintendo Switch to the side for a moment. And you can see here, like I said, it's just an Arch Linux based PC operating system, and it takes a minute for this to start, and here you go. Now you can plug in a USB-C hub here and use a regular keyboard and mouse. You can use the HDMI output to dock it to a television. I did notice that the official Steam dock has been delayed due to manufacturing backups, but this is just basically Arch Linux with KDE on it, so that you can come in here, you can install flat packs and things of that nature. Now, the core operating system files themselves are part of what's known as an immutable file system. So you can't make like system-wide changes, but as long as it's not outside of your user's home directory, you can install flat packs, you can store files on here. Like I said, you can set up emulators and things of that nature. I saw that I've got some updates, so I'm going to go ahead and install those. You can come into Discover, which is the KDE Software Center, and you can look for all kinds of stuff. It has FlatHub already set up out of the box, so you don't have to set that up yourself. So you can click in here, and let's say, and then to bring up a keyboard without plugging one in, you can hold Steam and press X, and you can either hunt and peck on the screen, you can use your D-pad to scroll around and press A, or you can use the touchpads, and you can use them both at once. So you could do a search for, like, let's say GOGLE space CHROME and press enter. And there you can get Google Chrome from FlatHub on your Steam Deck. Now, I'm not going to install it. I don't want it, but that's an option. And we can close that out. And then when you're done here doing whatever it is that you want or need to do, you can just come up here, click on Return to Gaming Mode, and you wait a moment. And we're back in the Steam OS type interface, which is a lot more suited to the handheld gaming aspect of this console. So you may have noticed that I've got the Xbox logo here. This is not some weird thing that you've got to be an elite hacker to set up. It's a little technical, but Microsoft has actually published official instructions on how to set up Xbox Cloud Gaming. Basically, the long and short of it is that you install the flat pack of Microsoft Edge, you sign into your Microsoft account, and then you create a custom non-Steam game entry for Edge that basically launches it in full screen mode, automatically directed to the Xbox Cloud Gaming website. And so, and there's a command that you have to run to allow it to properly read from your controller input, but the end result is that now on my Steam Deck I can go click on Xbox Live or Xbox Cloud Gaming and hit play, and here we are, Xbox Cloud Gaming. Now what this is literally just the website running in Microsoft Edge on this Linux operating system, but it's the way it's set up. You use your controller to navigate, and I'm not a paid subscriber, so there's not a whole lot I can do in here, but I can launch Fortnite. You just hit play. It might warn you network unsupported. We're going to say continue anyway because it works fine. Launching with Cloud Gaming Beta. It runs fine. It looks like 60 frames per second to me. It looks good and fluid. There's some input latency, like if I stare at my joystick when I move it and like compare when I move this to when I see an action on screen, but it's very minimal, at least for me as a casual, non-competitive Fortnite player. But generally speaking, it's been a great experience, and it's a good way to play Fortnite. And the reason I show this is because Fortnite does not work on SteamOS. It does not run on Linux. I have ran Fortnite on Linux successfully before and gotten into a match. And about 10 seconds into the match, you will get kicked because of the anti-cheat. The anti-cheat does not function properly on Linux, at least as of this recording. So if you want to play Fortnite on your Steam Deck, your options are either to install Windows or run it through xCloud. And installing Windows, at least the last I heard, was not a great experience on this, because even though it is just a PC, not all of the drivers were available just yet. So like not all of the features on the Steam Deck work properly in Windows just yet. But that is an option for you. Me personally, I'm a Linux enthusiast, so I'm going to leave SteamOS on here, and if I want to play Fortnite, I'll just play it on xCloud, because honestly, playing it, streaming it at 60 frames per second on this bigger screen, in my opinion, is a better experience than playing it at like 25 to 30 frames per second natively on this smaller screen. Now, one of the reasons that I was really excited to try out the Steam Deck was because I bought Death Stranding. I'm a big fan of Hideo Kojima's work. The Metal Gear Solid series of games is one of my favorite video game series in the world. And Death Stranding will launch on my PC, but I don't know if I just don't have the CPU grunt or what, but it seems like it doesn't matter what I do to the settings. The game seems to be stuck at about 18 to 20 frames per second. It doesn't matter if I'm running it at 4K high or 720p low settings. The frame rate seems stuck at the same place. And I don't know if it's a lack of CPU grunt or what it is, because my gaming PC is a little older. Now, I'll put the specs for it up on the screen here. As far as GPU power, it's obviously got the Steam Deck whipped still, even though it's a 6-year-old desktop. But in terms of CPU power, the Steam Deck is pretty impressive for what it is. Now, one other cool feature of the Steam Deck is the fact that it has a sleep mode just like the Nintendo Switch does. So you could actually be in game. Let's get a game up and running here. Alright, so let's say that you're playing Spyro and you say, you know what, I'm not really at a good stopping point. I'm in the middle of a level or something and I don't want to just have to redo this whole level. You can just click the power button and the Steam Deck will go to sleep. And at this point, for all intents and purposes, it's off. Right? It's going to draw very little power, put it in its carrying case, take it with you, and when you're able to play again, you can just click the power button to wake it back up. Put your pin number in if you've got one set. And we're right back where we left off. No lost progress or anything. And so that's really cool because to me, what Valve has done is they have taken what I love about PC gaming. The flexibility, the backwards compatibility, the most of the time the better visuals compared to the consoles of the generation. And they have put it in a form factor that allows me to just take my library with me. So in summary, in my opinion, Valve has given us a wonderful product. They have given us a gaming PC that can properly compete with the Nintendo Switch. It's more comfortable, it's more powerful, it's more flexible, it's got a bigger screen. Now, is it the Nintendo Switch killer that I have seen some people refer to it as? No. Nintendo still makes excellent first-party games. And if anything can be said about Nintendo, they are very protective of their intellectual property. I have said multiple times on the internet that if Nintendo would like officially release their games on Steam, I would buy them in a heartbeat. But they won't. They want their games to be played on their platform. And so if you want to play Nintendo games like Breath of the Wild 2, you're going to have a Nintendo Switch. That's one reason I've got a Nintendo Switch, is I want to play Nintendo games. I've got 4 Nintendo Switches in this household because we suck at sharing. We got one for me, one for my wife, and one for each of my children. So this is not a Nintendo Switch killer. Where I see this being useful, besides just playing the PC exclusive games, is even the third-party games that are on both systems are going to run and look and play better on the Steam Deck. I'll give you an example. Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. I played through it on this desktop PC actually a few years back. I bought the game for the Nintendo Switch because I was like, hey, I really liked the game. It had a cool story. It looked good. I would like to play it portable, like on the go. Like take my Switch, stick it in a case, take it, on trips or whatever, or just lay in the bed or something and play the game again. It was so bad. I don't see why Nintendo even allowed the product to be published for the Nintendo Switch, because the Switch was obviously not powerful enough to run the game. The opening little sequence where you're in the boat was okay, but the very first cutscene that arose for that first little mini boss that you fight, the CPU on the Switch was so overpowered that the audio and the video in that cutscene fell out of sync, so that the audio finished playing long before the on-screen activity did, because the cutscene was being rendered in real time in-engine. It wasn't pre-rendered. And so the audio finished playing, and you're sitting here watching these characters continue to go through the motions of this act, but in half or 3/4 speed. And so the audio file finished, and they're still slow motion going through the motions of the cutscene. So where I see the Steam Deck being useful, like I said, besides playing the PC exclusives and the flexibility and the ergonomics and things, is the fact that third-party games are going to look and run way better on the Steam Deck than they do on the Nintendo Switch. Now, like I said, the Nintendo Switch still has a place in my home. It's got Nintendo games. I just don't see myself buying very many more third-party games for the Nintendo Switch now that the Steam Deck is a thing. So, should you buy or pre-order a Steam Deck? If you're a PC gamer, in my opinion, absolutely. Especially, even if you've got a desktop PC. If my wife wants to sit in here in the living room and watch television, I can't carry that in the bedroom. And we use this for more than just gaming. We use it for all kinds of things. But gaming is one of its big uses. But I can't just pick this up and take it in the bedroom with me. But I can this. And it's the same library. Your saves sync across Steam, so I can literally leave a game on the desktop and take this in there, turn it on, and pick up right where I left off. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're a person who has only ever used Windows, that doesn't matter in terms of using the interface. In fact, I hope they bring this interface to Steam Big Picture mode on regular PCs, because I think this is a lot better console-esque interface than Steam Big Picture mode is. I really like this. But one thing to keep in mind is that it's not Windows, and most PC games are Windows only. Now, there are a number of Linux native games, but most of the games that you're going to play on the Steam Deck are Windows only, and they're running through Valve's compatibility layer called Proton. Proton is awesome, but it's not perfect. There are some games that just straight up do not run on it. There are some games that may work, but may have a glitch or two. Even though my experience has been like 99% positive, there is a chance that you may have some issues with some games that you wouldn't have if you were gaming on Windows. Valve is constantly improving Proton, and they have a grading system for games to tell you how well the game should work on the Steam Deck. But just know that if you're a person who's only ever gamed on Windows, that there is a chance that you're going to find a game that you like that either doesn't run at all, doesn't run well, or maybe has some bugs, or maybe some features don't work. You remember what I said about Fortnite and the multiplayer? Because even though Epic has ported Easy Anti-Cheat to Linux, for whatever reason, they won't enable Linux support for it in Fortnite. So you can't play Fortnite natively on the Steam Deck. You have to stream it through Xbox Cloud Gaming or something of that nature, at least right now. I would love to see them bring it to Steam with native Linux support where we can just play it natively. But if you're a PC gaming enthusiast and you love the idea of a powerful, handheld, console-like experience on a PC, it's literally just an AMD APU, shares your game library and save data with your desktop PC, then I absolutely would recommend pre-ordering or purchasing one of these. So that's my take on the Steam Deck. Personally, my subjective opinion, it's it's great. It's one of the greatest devices I've ever purchased. It's not going to replace my Nintendo Switch, because they still have Metroid Prime 4 and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, and probably a few other things coming out in the future that are going to be Nintendo IPs, and so we're only going to be on the Nintendo console. But I played through God of War on PC, on this one actually. Loved it. Runs great on the Steam Deck. When God of War Ragnarok comes out on PC, you can bet I'm going to be playing it on Steam Deck and this desktop. The games look better than the Switch. They run better than the Switch. I can't say enough good things about the Steam Deck. So if you have any comments or questions about the Steam Deck or my opinion on something, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. I'm a gaming enthusiast, I'm a PC enthusiast, and a Linux enthusiast, and this is literally just like the best of all of those. I just wanted to make this video giving my take on the Steam Deck, and like I said, don't take this as a Nintendo Switch hate video. It's not. I love the Nintendo Switch, and it's 5 years older than this, so it's not really a 100% fair comparison. You know, the Nintendo Switch sort of did it first in terms of being a good handheld gaming console. But if you had to buy one or the other today, I would choose the Steam Deck. So hopefully you found this video useful, informative maybe. Y'all take care. Have a good one.